Hey everybody! Welcome to a Craftsmas Cricut tutorial. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel because I put out new videos all the time. Hit the bell icon and that will alert you to when I post a new video. Today we're going to learn how to make the embroidery hoop decor. A lot of people refer to them as a wreath, but I think it's more of just general decor. So what you need to make this is a piece of fabric large enough for your embroidery hoop. These come in several sizes. You'll need some sort of HTV in a color of your choosing, and fabric, unless I already said that, which is possible. Sorry, I have a kitten, so she's being a little annoying and distracting me, but so embroidery hoop, fabric, HTV, and then some sort of a bow to cover up where your embroidery hoop has to connect. So I'm going to show you guys how to do the HTV, and then we're going to show you how to apply it and weed it and all that good stuff. So let's get over to Design Space and get started. We know the space that we have to work with, and we know how much HTV we have, because again, you always want to make sure that you know how much material you have as well as how much space you have, especially since we're just using a random piece of HTV for this. So let's open a text box, and we are going to just put in the black stones. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. I'm going to choose a text, and I always really like this one font that I just got. It's called Christmas Time, and it's a personal use one, so make sure that you don't sell anything with this on it. But this is probably one of my favorite fonts right now. It looks really pretty and nice. So we'll just reduce our letter spacing, which you do with most of your script fonts, and you do that just up here in the upper, like, middle section under letter space. Now I know with this font I do have to ungroup them, because see how close the B and the L are, and yet these letters aren't touching. So we are just going to go ahead and ungroup this right away, and we'll have to just manually move our letters. And you just do that by clicking on a letter and pulling it to your next letter. And I'm going to move the T over, and I'm going to end up moving the black stones over closer to the T as well. But first I'm just going to go ahead and connect all of my letters. So you just move each one over as you want them to connect. Nothing too hard about this one. It's pretty simple. And then this, I'm going to draw a box around these last 4 characters because we're just going to move them all at once. I'm going to just make sure those didn't slide up too much. And if you're in a moment like me where that one kind of moved around, what you can do, select the entire item. And then over here you have align. And you can actually just make sure that they align correctly. And it is going to move your apostrophe, but I would rather have to move my apostrophe than move everything. So I'm just going to grab the apostrophe and just put it back where it goes. What that does is it just makes sure all the bottoms of your letters are lined up properly. So we're just going to move the B over a little bit. Probably going to move the T over just a hair. And then we want to select the entire black stones and move that over. That way it's closer to the word the. Oops. And now we select the whole thing and weld it. What weld does is it gets rid of any of your cut lines in your letters, so everything cuts as one piece. So we're going to make this bigger because we do have about 12 inches to work with, both with HTV and on our project. But remember, you can only go about 11.5. So I'm just going to go right about there. That's probably a decent size. We're also going to do the established for this one, just to go on the bottom. Now, I am using a font that has these little glyphy things. So we're going to just go ahead and get rid of the 2018, which was actually wrong. Anyways, it was 17. I always do that. I'm a terrible wife. And we're just going to go ahead and move those just a little closer together and weld that. And we'll make this a little bit bigger, but probably not too much. I don't want it as big as the black stones. And we're going to open another text box and type in 2017, get the right year. And we'll change the font on this one, since again, this one has the glyphs. The font for your numbers isn't really super, nobody's really going to notice if you use a different font for it. I do try to find one that kind of matches up, or at least looks like it's pretty easy to read, especially for a number. Like, I don't really like that one. I think that's a little too fat. I usually use, like I said, I use like something that's easy to read, and that way it's, you know, with the numbers, you don't really need a script number to go with a script font. But I do want to make sure that it's big enough. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now this isn't how this is going to lay out. And I'm not going to attach it because I want to save some of my HTV. This part I am going to make sure the and Blackstones is where it belongs, and those are welded and then established as welded, and then these ones are just attached. So we don't have to worry about it moving around. So if we click Make It, it's going to show us exactly how it's going to cut out. And that's perfect. It saves us on our HTV because we don't want to waste it because we don't have a ton. So all we're going to do then is click Continue, and it's probably going to yell at me because I don't have my machine on or anything yet. See how prepared I was for this. And we'll just turn it because it is going to yell. Make sure your machine isn't touching a wall. That's pretty important when you do this stuff, because if it is and your mat bumps that wall, it can actually pop the stuff off your mat and then your machine will eat it. But on here, we're going to just choose an iron-on, and I'm going to show you guys how to put your iron-on on your mat, and then we can get ready to cut it out. So this is some cheap HTV that I got off of Amazon. Not my favorite, but it'll do for a project like this. I would not use this on a shirt. I do not recommend it. But if you're unsure of which way your HTV goes down, use a Cricut weeding tool or really anything to poke at it on the back or whatever side. And it'll show you which side is your carrier sheet versus which side is your HTV. So this side that's touching the mat right now is our carrier sheet, and then this side is the HTV. So you want to make sure you always put carrier sheet down or shiny side down, but this one is very hard to tell which side is the shiny side. And you can always double check yourself because it's not going to ruin your HTV if you just pull that corner up a little bit. It's totally fine. So we have our machine set to iron on. And we have our HTV set, and I'll move you guys over a little bit so you guys can see the machine here. We're going to load our mat, and again, I've pulled it away from the wall. It might still bump the wall, but it won't bump it too bad. So we're just going to lay this down and click the Cricut button, and this is going to cut out pretty quickly. Oh, shoot. And you know what? I'm an idiot because I totally forgot to mirror. And that is one thing you want to make sure that you... Hold on. Stop cutting. Stop. So I totally forgot to mirror because I'm dumb. So make sure you mirror. I've just made this thing very angry. I'm going to go ahead and click Make It, and I'm going to mirror it. Guys, this is, yeah. This happens more often than you think. So we're just going to move stuff around on the mat so that it doesn't cut right where it started to cut the S out. So no big deal. It happens, but I caught it before it got too far. So now we can do this. So I have a little S cut over here. I think it'll be fine. I moved stuff around. If not, it's fine. This is not that big of a project, so it'll be okay. So we'll go ahead and click that. And we'll click the Go. So now it should cut perfectly fine this time and do it in the correct direction. Mirror your HTV. Anytime you're using HTV. I preach this and then I messed it up. So always remember to mirror. And I'm sure some of you, as I was clicking Make It, were probably screaming at me to mirror it. And I legit forgot. It does happen. So I'm going to let this get cut out. I'll show you guys how we're going to weed it, and then we can get ready to apply it. I've trimmed around my HTV because I like to make sure I save as much of it as possible. So all we're going to do is just pull up the same corner that we already pulled up to check which side to lay it down on and pull. HTV is pretty simple to weed. It does come up pretty easily. As long as you've cut it on the correct setting, it should come up pretty easily as you just pull. It is stretchier, so it will, you know, rip sometimes if you right like that. So don't worry too much about that. It's fine if it rips. You know, I'm not really concerned about that. I just like to make sure I get it all off. And like with the letters like the B, if it rips off, it's fine. I really don't care. I'll come back and weed it later. So it's not a big deal. But this is definitely a lot easier and quicker to weed. Now I'm going to point out something to you. And I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but hopefully you can see it. Might be able to see a little bit better like that. This is where that S cut before I got it to pause. I'm just going to leave it. I'm not worried about it. It's my own sign. So when I go to weed this, I'm just going to make sure that I weed out this part right here and then this part and leave this piece connected. It'll look fine. No one will notice that this is going on our door. So if it's not perfect, I'm not really worried about it. But if you are making this as a gift or, you know, going to sell it, I would have definitely like fixed that 100%. And you don't have to recut the whole thing if it happened with just one letter. You can just recut the one letter and you can always just piece it in. So I wouldn't worry too much about it for your own personal stuff, but for shirts or for, you know, things you're going to sell or give to friends, you always want to make your product look as professional as possible. Because that is your business and your name, and what's going to help you guys grow a business is making sure that your product is perfect as can be, and that will cause people to tell other people that they got their shirt or their sign or their ornament from you, and those people will see a nice quality product and expect a quality product in return when they order. So make sure you're doing that. But you can see how quickly this goes. It is a pretty fast process. I will still need to heat the heat press, but I don't like to do that in our house unless I'm staring at it, because we do have a kitten and she is into everything right now. So we just like to make sure that we always keep our eyes on the kitten. And if you have kids also, you know, obviously heat presses get pretty hot. So this is, again, stuff from Amazon. It doesn't have directions with it, so I usually do it about 325 for like 15 seconds, and then I check it. Just because I don't have directions. Like, it literally was something that somebody bought me for Christmas before we knew about, you know, the good stuff. So, I just sort of have to guess and hope it sticks. If it doesn't stick, it's okay. I just use a different, I just press it longer. So we can see it's all weeded out. I do need to trim off the 2017 and the established so that I can lay those down. So make sure you get all your little pieces of HTV off. That's actually on the other side. And everything is weeded. I always double check my work before I press. And we can get over to the heat press and get that warmed up, and then we'll be ready to put our design on. This is the fabric we've chosen. I got it from Joann Fabrics on sale. It just has little deer and squirrels. And then we have our embroidery hoop. It's a pretty large hoop, but we're going to put it on our front door, so I wanted it bigger. So all I basically do is just lay it down just to make sure that it's going to fit. And I'm going to cut mine probably way larger than I absolutely need to, but that way I have room for error, which is bound to happen. So I'm just going to cut mine just a little bit bigger than I need to. So I'm probably just going to cut the whole square out. So let's do that really quick. You can use any fabric that you want with these. Fleece fabric is good. You can use flannel. This is just a 100% cotton. I think I actually found this probably in the clearance section because I love a good clearance. And you can pretty much use whatever your heart desires. These make really good gifts. They are also really fun if you use them for like a little girl's room or boy's room, because they can easily hang them on their wall with their name on them in a fabric that maybe matches whatever their room is decorated in. So these are really versatile and fun. And I'm just going to cut through all this so that we'll have the square. I missed a corner. And listen, fabric and I, we're not the best of friends, but we're going to just go for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my hoop over my fabric. And we have already cut out our design, so we know how big it is. I am going to pre-press this just so that the wrinkles are out of it, but I'm just going to, for my own look, I'm going to just place my design down, and then I'll probably move it around based on where my hoop is. Because it's not going to have to be perfect, it just gives me an idea of where everything needs to be in order to fit within the hoop. And I actually need to cut these apart. I forgot. Let's cut those apart. So we're just going to, and again, I didn't want anything that was going to take up a ton of space. I really liked the fabric to shine on this project. So I think right about this general vicinity. So it gives me an idea of about where stuff needs to sit. And I know it's not straight, so don't worry. But I'm going to go pre-press this, and that way it's nice and flat, and then we can press our design on. We've got our heat press set, and we have our Teflon sheets. These are very important. It helps keep your projects from scorching. So the first thing I said we were going to do, we're going to make sure that we press out our fabric. And we're doing this because it's got some wrinkles in it, and it also can help the HTV adhere a little bit better. So all I'm going to do is just slide mine under. I do have this set to kind of a higher pressure right now because I used it on something else. But right now the higher pressure is fine with just a quick pre-press to our fabric. Again, only doing this just to make sure that there's no wrinkles in it. And so you don't have to press it real long, just for a few seconds, and then you can just lift up. It's fine, no big deal. Now, this is a swing away, so I can actually swing this out of the way. I'm going to move the Teflon sheet. It likes to stick to the top of this one. I don't know if it does that for everybody, but it certainly does it for me. It makes me crazy. So we're just going to slide this over here to hold it down right now so it doesn't slide off. So you can see that this is nice and flat now, which is exactly what we wanted. We need a flat surface and we don't want any wrinkles. And then we're just going to put our design on here. Now this is a 12 by 9, so it's a little tight with doing some of these. And I just want to make sure that I'm going to leave enough space around it. And of course, there goes the Teflon sheet. And sometimes you can just slide this down just so you make sure you're putting it on straight. You can always slide it back up. That's pretty straight, I think. Maybe not. Trying to make sure it's straight. This isn't the easiest, but we can always correct whatever isn't fully straight when we do the hoop part. So that's okay. And then remember, we're just going to put the 2017 down here somewhere. And this doesn't have to be exact of, you know, any perfect look. So that's pretty good right there. So we're going to slide this back in. And because this is a 12 by 9, I just want to make sure that the whole design is, in fact, in the press. And then, whoops, and apparently bump the 2017 with the Teflon sheet. This is not the stickiest transfer material on this cheaper HTV, so that's something you want to consider when you're doing these. So we're just going to do that. Make sure the Teflon's under that. We'll swing it back over it carefully. Make sure it's lined up, or at least relatively lined up. And then we're going to just go ahead and press. Somebody told me how to use the timer on this. Thank you for whoever that was. I do forget how to do that. So I'm just going to kind of count in my head. Luckily, this is just a cotton fabric and that cheap HTV. So it's not... It's usually... I found about 325, about 20 seconds in some of the other projects. So I just sort of watch the timer actually on my camera right now to use it as a timer as to how long this has been sitting in here. You can always pull it off and test it and see if it's stuck, and you can always press some more if need be. There are a lot of people who say, oh, press from the back. You don't have to do that if you're pressing it correctly from the front. So keep that in mind. If you're doing something like a onesie, you need to make sure that your design is pushed up from the seams, because if it's not, you're never going to get a good press on the actual design because it's pressing the seams more than anything. So it actually looks like this stuck pretty well. I do always check them before I pull it off my heat press, because then it's all at least already on here. But do be careful because it is sharp, or hot, sharp, jeez. Tell them I'm working with scissors too much today. It is sharp, so, and hot, and it looks like the kept its thing. Now, I will say, I realize now that I missed something that was stuck to it. Part of the S. But, you know, honestly, it looks like it's part of the T. So, I'm just going to go with it. We're just going to leave it. It's fine. I'm not that worried about it. It is perfectly okay. So, let's go ahead, let this cool for a few minutes, and then we can put it into our embroidery hoop, and we can then cut the circle out. We're ready to put this in our embroidery hoop. So all we do is just loosen the little wing nut up here. And what that does is it loosens the hoops apart from each other. So what you do is you take your bottom hoop, so your smaller of the hoops, the inside hoop, and you take your inside hoop and it goes under your fabric. Now don't worry about if your fabric is straight right now. Just make sure that it's kind of in the center. And you can just do that by feeling where your hoop is. And I think that's pretty close. We'll probably move it down a little bit. And we'll fix this based on where our big hoop lands. So what we do is we take your big hoop and you put it over your design. Now see, I remember I said it doesn't matter if it's straight. It doesn't, because this is what you're going to use to straighten, to put it on straight. So you just put it over your fabric, and I don't know that it's straight. So let me hold it up really quick. I have a hard time sometimes if I'm just looking at it laying down. That is pretty close to straight. So we're going to go with this. Now you want to make sure it's nice and tight, and you can do that just by kind of pulling a little bit. And just make sure that it's nice, your fabric is on there tight. And I actually might need to move this up a little bit. I slid it down too much. So let's just move it up a little. I just want to make sure there's enough of an edge around the top that it has a good hold. So again, we may need to adjust a little bit as you do this. I prefer to put the HTV on before I put the hoop on. It's just a lot easier. That looks pretty gosh darn good. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. So you just tighten, all you do now is you just tighten your wing nut. This is pretty easy, guys. You just pick it up and you can just tighten it. And you're going to want to tighten it as tight as it's going to go. And don't worry, because this is going to get covered up with like a ribbon. I am terrible at ribbons, just an FYI, so I don't even know if I'm going to ribbon this for you. But as you're tightening, you just want to make sure that your hoops are even with each other. So you just want to kind of, I go around, and what I do is I just, as it's pretty tight, I push the hoops together, and that helps tighten your fabric as well, which is really nice. So then you just make sure that your hoops are nice and tight together. And you don't want to over tighten them, because if you do, that can cause it to crack. So you just want to be careful with them. But it's pretty darn tight. That ain't going anywhere. And then I'm just going to give that a quick tuggy tug. All right. And you can tug your fabric a little bit if it feels like it's a little loose in spots. Just don't tug it too much. So there is your fabric. So what we're doing now, we flip it over. There's a couple options. If your fabric's thick, you can just fold it over this, and you can usually just adhere it. I'm not going to do that because my fabric's kind of thin. I'm actually going to go around my hoop. Oops, and I totally just dropped something. I'm going to go around my hoop, and I'm going to trim off the excess. Now, guys, could I have cut this to fit? Probably. Could I have cut it way better? Oh, yeah. Am I good with fabric? Absolutely not. That's why for these, not even going to attempt to measure and cut a circle. It's just not a skill that I can do. So what I do is I put it in the hoop, and then I cut around the hoop. So I always make sure that if I'm making something like this, I have plenty of extra fabric. Because let me tell you guys, I am not a fabric girl. I can't sew. I cannot do much with fabric. Now these are pretty brand new scissors. They're actually not fabric scissors, but they're working pretty well for this. Now at this little spot up here, I'm not real worried about making sure that it's cut real short, because I'm going to put a bow on here once I find one, and I'll have to see what I have in the world of ribbon, because I don't know if I might have some burlap that would look okay. But if I don't, we'll have to just imagine the ribbon for this project. But you guys are pretty cool about when I don't have all of my stuff. And you guys know how to make ribbons and things like that. And you can add lots of embellishments to this. You could put little pine cones or whatever you wanted to around this, depending on what your design is and what your style is. So, and you may need to go around and retrim just a little bit. Like this piece I can see might need trimmed back a little bit just because you can see it from the other side. But you can just easily go through and just trim them off as need be. You do want to use some sharp scissors on this. But these are so fun and easy to make, you guys. And you can do them in little ones, in big ones. This one was one of the, I would say it's like the medium size that they had available, because there were some really big ones. But I thought this would be like just a nice size to go on our door. And I'm going to go ahead and trim this off just because I'm up there. So there we have our embroidery hoop. I think this came out really, really cute. I'm going to look and see if I have any ribbon, and I'll come back once I figured out if I have any ribbon. Okay, so I know that the ribbon totally doesn't match, but it gives you guys the idea of what it would look like once I find an actual ribbon to match. I just don't have one, but I really wanted to show you guys this for Craftsmas, because this is another quick, easy, really simple gift to make if you have to buy something for somebody that has everything. And you can do these for all sorts of seasons. You can do them with just their last names on them like I did. You can do one for grandma and grandpa with all their grandkids' names. This is a really easy project because all you need is some fabric. The fabric was on sale, so I think I probably spent $4 on a ton of it. The embroidery hoop was about $3.50 for this size, but they range anywhere from about $10 down to $1. And then a ribbon, which you probably already have, especially if you can plan ahead, unlike me, and get fabric that matches ribbon that you already own. This craft took, I don't know, 15 minutes start to finish. Pretty easy craft. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos all the time, so hit that bell icon because that'll alert you to when I post a new video. I hope you guys have really been enjoying Craftsmas as much as I have. It has been a lot of work, but a lot of fun. I love sharing all of these wonderful crafts with you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Happy Craftsmas and happy crafting.